Here we are, February. It's kind of light out. It's not super light out. It's the afternoon. It's probably the brightest, just about the brightest time of day. I'm not really wearing any makeup. My complexion is a little bit junky. Um, I was working on my makeup collection. I really like, I got this Revlon like cream concealer or foundation, and it has like nice smooth feeling. But I got this other like more expensive foundation, and it smells really beautiful. It's like really pungent and like warm and soft smelling, and I have the Estee Lauder like concealer for my under eyes, and like whatever blemishes, and I had like the um, color that I wanted, but when I think I had gone to Macy's, and the like I don't know if it's Estee Lauder or like the Revlon or like which brand of conceal or I mean foundation. It has like this weird kind of like ooh smell. It like I'm kind of like a purist. I rarely like wear makeup frequently. Like since I've been living alone, I've been practicing my makeup a lot because um, it's important to have like social obligations as far as like what other people do, especially when you don't want to fall into old habits of like ignoring your own needs um, or hanging out with people that aren't um, like aware of the world around them. So I was like, started doing my makeup, and I discovered that the makeup that I like is like some of it's not expensive at all. It's like, probably between like $8 and like $20. And but then the brand stuff is like, more high end. And so I was like thinking about it, because when you as a female, when you think about the other like things that women are into, it's like, oh, women, when you're a kid, because I live by a high school, and so I'm always like thinking about the kids these days. But like when I was a kid, it's like, I like to hang out with the boys because I had brothers, and I always had to hang out with my brother. So I like want a boyfriend, and then like, I didn't really think at that age, like, oh, I need a husband, like I need all my things, because I think in American culture and society, it's like, I mean, at least in California, it's like we haven't really been taught and trained like, the more Republican values of, like having your chest of whatever objects, it's like if you're planning to have kids, it's like you can get a cedar chest and put like, blankets and like sheets and plates and, all the things the kids need, like to keep for them when they get of age to then start their own families. And where I think my parents were a little bit hasty in their planning of having children. They didn't really plan. They were more, in college and hadn't really thought about it. So I had to kind of handle that in some regard, due to their lack of planning. So then when it came to like, I want to plan my kids because, I don't know that, like, I know that the way my grandparents have lived has lived them very well and into old age. But my parents, it's kind of like, they broke up and all this drama. And so it's like, when I'm thinking about like what are the things that I can do today to sustain and like continue my life as the way I want it, so that when I, you know, get to my older years, I'm not having these same recurring patterns of like, oh my God, I hate my life. Like, I don't want to live. Why? You know, which humans always go through. So it's like the apartment that I live in, it's like obviously the people were substance abusing and the floor is like beaten to crud. And it's like, so like it's weird because when I tell people like I was at the hospital, I was having like a heart palpitation, and I you know, was like telling them like I don't want to be here, like blah blah blah, and they like wrote down like you're suicidal, blah 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 blah, and I was like, I was saying that I didn't want to live in this city because one, I haven't found any work, and then two, it's like you know, what am I supposed to do? My apartment's not up to date. If it was up to date, I could easily like host somebody who wants to meet me and like hang out with me and be around me. It's like people that have what I want aren't the type of people that would do this situation to me, you know? They wouldn't put me in an apartment where it needs so much attention. And it's like, so it's very frustrating because, you know, you go through life and you have all these constructs, and then some people just float in from nowhere and they're like getting your job or they're doing work that you could be doing, and instead it's like something else entirely, and you're like really? So I'm kind of having that type of issue where I think that that all these companies that are like trying to sell us like their junk from yesterday, like they're like, oh, you can take drugs from the pharmacy, and then you're like, why would I want to take drugs from the pharmacy? Like, I want a house, I want a family, like I want all these things. Why are you trying to trick me into failing? So not to say that I'm failing, I mean, I wouldn't say that per se. But it's interesting because when I was having like these issues of like self-exploration or self-explanation, you know, like people asking me like, what's wrong with you or what's going on? Are you okay? And like, you don't really know how to like explain that. So it's like, you know, that internal monitor in which you're actually like needing that external input from wherever it comes from, you know, and then you're being asked to like not tell all these people all these things, and you're like, well, no, you know, that's not really been working for us. As we recall, the way that like we've gotten to this point is like you know, like all these different things where it's like, oh, the family has been broken up, or the court, or the this or the that, and you're like, yeah, but like, is that one of the reasons that I'm like being terrified of like making the wrong choices, or you know, having the wrong people in my life? Like that, oh, if we did get in a scuffle, like they're gonna just like take my husband away, and the babies aren't even gonna get raised, and they're not gonna have any input from their family or from their father. And I'm kind of like, you know, that's like the basis of why the kids aren't talking to begin with. And then you get to my generation, and like the women that I know that have like had kids already, it's like they're like not even censoring their children. They're not being like I was at work, and the girl who I was like helping, she's like not doing anything for her kid, you know, like she's like, I'm totally supportive of my child, and I'm like, you're on the phone at work and your child is trying to talk to you. Like, do you not understand that that's probably not your job? Like, if you're on the phone and your kid is talking to you, your job is one or the other, not both, right? Like, so, like, I was raised to the effect, it's like, I can get a hold of my mom anytime when I call her, because when I call her, she knows that when she trained me, that I was taught not to talk to her if she's on the phone, because that's a superiority and inferiority complex, right? It's like she's not training her kid to not overspeak her, and I've been completely trained to respect my elders, and I understand that, she's a small child, but it's like if you don't have a daycare or you can't take her to so and so's house for whatever allotted amount of time, you need to be able to tell your children no. Otherwise, we're going to continue having these cultural clashes that inevitably lead to things like the federal government got invaded. You're like, that's not normal, right? So, that's one of the very many things on my mind when I have thought about having children, and realized that I don't really have like a close-knit group of people that like know how my family functions, right? It's like, as an individual, it's been very difficult for me to find reliable people that I can trust and have as a part of my life. So it's a little bit different when you're young and you're just thinking about like, I don't want to be around my family because they're mean to me. I want to go hang out with my friends because they're so much more fun. And it's like, so I'm reflecting more and more, like, because I feel like to some degree that I'm like the first like real matriarch in my family, because my grandma was adopted, and then my mother technically was adopted by her stepfather also. My grandma was like fully adopted. Like, we don't know who her like actual parents had been. And so like doing a lot of soul searching in that regard, because it's like, what is missing in my congruent like family origin? And so, like reaching for those resources intellectually has been like really stimulating, in the regard that other people like aren't really interested in a lot of those topics. So when I was thinking about that, I was studying a little bit more about like relationship patterns, and like the providership and the things that people do honestly, like, for themselves and others, based off of like who they are as people. And because like when I was in college and surrounded by a lot of people, it's like there's like the what is it? Oh, like there's, like everybody likes different kinds of music, but if you want to be like in a group of people, they're like, oh, you like the same type of music. And then it's weird because, like girls like certain types of music and boys like certain other types of music. And then, it's like, oh, and nobody likes country music. And I was like, country music can be really beneficial. Like, and then Gwen Stefani got married to Blake Shelton, and which was, of course, super awesome, because then I'm like, oh, like I naturally then got exposed to like the positive aspects of country music. And so then the like then the Lady Gagas of the world, and the it's like she's just one person, and you're like, wow, she's really got quite the voice. And then I was paying attention just recently to the actress. She's really pretty, Megan Fox. She, I guess, had a divorce, and she had to get the like new husband, and so she married some other guy that has kids too. And they were on talking, and I thought, well, he's pretty handsome, she's good looking, he's a handsome guy. And and they're sitting there talking, and I'm like, oh my God, they're like hippies. Like, they're like, we're rock stars and movie stars. And I was like, they're like hippies. and then, um, and then what happened? And then the whole Lady Gaga, like, saga, like, it's like, because you have these, like, people that do music, and some people, they get out of music and they go into fashion, or they go into makeup, or when they like settle down and have a family, maybe they don't want to be on tour anymore, or they get a bar or a restaurant, or just like a more stable environment. And I hadn't really paid attention to any of Lady Gaga's music. Like, I mean, I think I heard her first album. Like, everybody was like, oh my gosh, dance music, woohoo. And, and then, it's like, oh, she's kind of like, I don't know. I never really, I was like, she's kind of like inner city, or like whatever, like it was like the boys weren't really into her, but it was kind of like too party. And but then more recently, it's like she started talking about these more interesting topics about like, um, I mean, because I had this notion of I didn't really know what I was doing when I went to college. Like, I didn't really receive any direction when I was going to college. Um, Actually, the first 2 years that I went to college, I didn't talk to like my family really. Like, I just like, I don't even want to talk to you. Like, I'm living in a different house. I don't have to talk to you. And that wasn't really like a healthy behavior. That wasn't something that benefits me in the long run. So I was thinking that, why didn't I think of studying botany? Because I'm from like a place full of trees and plants and vegetation, and my dad already taught me a lot about that. Or why didn't I study chemistry? Because it's such a vast topic. And so I was thinking about those things that I could have been studying, instead of kind of, relearning, like, what are my parents? Like, I'm like, they studied engineering. That's so fascinating. Like, it has so much potential to, like, change the environment, or change, like develop the world. And I'm like, engineering isn't necessarily the only form of development. There's other people that are needed in life and in the world. And, even though I was kind of spiritually like torn inside when I was a child, and, my parents had divorced, and my siblings were rather contrite. And so it's kind of like, when we get to this topic of like, now we're adults, and I don't have any kids yet, and this like, I don't know, it's like this weird construct in which you have to self-preserve, but you also have to like expand out into the world. And I have not found like a decent partner, as far as like somebody that I can really live with. I practice living with other people for like, let's see, 2005, yeah, like 5, like maybe like 15 years. 2005, 2000, minus 5, it's like 18 years. Oh my gosh. I'm like an adult. So I practiced with living with other people for like 18 years. And when I, like, besides my family, right? Wait, that's not right. Maybe 15. Let's see, 18. Like 14 years. Okay. So like 14 years. And then And the people, like, were just remakes of my, like, hysterical uh, family life, right? It's like my brother was like being wildly insulting of my mother, and like, you know, it's like there was no male authority to like whoop his ass. And then um my sister is like highly inflammatory and like will tell you just the craziest things. And then like my little brother was like highly violent, not like directly, but like inverse, like subversively. Like it's like we're playing catch with a baseball and he like hits me in the nose with the baseball, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to play ball with you anymore, guy. um and then, you know, and then my mom being like, I want to have my own life, I'm an independent woman. And me being like, yeah, I don't have kids and like march around and drag them through the mud with me. Like, that's not really my idea of like what a wholesome family is. So, um, and then it's weird because, you know, in California it's like you're young and beautiful and everything can go fine and right and just, and then you're like, oh, and the people are on drugs and all these things and all these and you're like, so you have to like kind of think about it, like, you know, this whole entire group of people like are just into doing drugs sometimes, you know, and you're like, that's not really federally regulated unless you work, like, you know, work on it. But it's like, I don't really know what to do because when I left the house, I had a person like with a vehicle, and now I'm just sitting here like, how am I to get a vehicle of my own? How am I to get the things that I need? Like, this isn't the, like, oh, we all need some, like, let's all go, like, it's like, I don't want to live in a third world country. Like, as a beautiful young woman, like, I need somebody who wants to help me personally, individually, not somebody paid to help me, somebody that wants to build a relationship with me. And so, being that I've had this experience where these people just think of not having conversations, it's kind of like, that's not really human life that you're purporting to have sustained. Like, it's like the cops, you know? It's like, oh, it's not enough that you have a badge and a gun and a you know, bulletproof vest. It's like you need handcuffs and pepper spray and tasers. It's like, why don't you just shoot the fucker? That's like that's why I was super like rallied when those stupids like invaded the stupid and they had to like defend the Senate. Um, because it's like the men just like weren't getting the message. It's like, do you know how to defend somebody? Like, that's the definition of you defend. Like, if the woman just wants to sit around and talk about moon and sunshine and beaches and forests, and you're like, I want my Tiffany's box with my wedding ring. I want my imperial roses. Like, it's redundant and biased for these people to be talking like that, and then being like, oh, and I'm just like a movie star. And you're like, well, I wanted you to pay your taxes. I would like there to be a system in which the IRS is not getting third-party input from, you need to pay me $70 so that I can file your taxes for you. Where's the free file that isn't corruptible or hackable? Like, where's your encrypted connection to the IRS? That's what I'm looking for. Because it's bullying and it's bullshit. You're telling me that when I made $5,000 or like $8,000 or $10,000 in a year, and you're gonna make me pay $70 for some guy to get me like $100 or $300 back from the IRS? Like, that's not really a fair fight, is it? Like, what does your bank do here exactly? Am I just paying gang lines? Like, in America, like, ever been to Mexico? They want to just, like, hack all your wires and tell you it's normal and fine. No, it isn't. Like, in America, we have rules, and if you don't abide, we're going to have real problems. For example, fucking Mexican having a job that I'm supposed to have and doing it wrong and not listening and speaking fucking Mexican. It's not racism to value yourself. It's not racism to understand that boundaries are important. It's important to be literate. It is important to understand English. If you're bringing your children from Mexico and all they want to do is encrypt insurance documents, and I need a connection to the IRS because the FBI is not reachable and the IRS is saying it's Indian from India, you're like, convoluted. The whole thing. Just totally convoluted. Problems Americans suffer. It's not a first world problem, it's a human problem. Like, the federal government in Mexico should be doing the job of containing its citizens. If they have a problem and they want to come and talk to Mr. White Man, why aren't they talking to Mr. Mexican Man? Like, I have a problem that we're being taught in our university systems that we need to accept diversity, and the diversity that we're having to accept is lack of wedding rings, divorce, suicide, murder. Those are problems that are real in America as well as other countries. It's not you need to flee to a different country to change the world. You need to understand sustaining your own government is the key to life. You want to die in the fucking street? Flee the country. You want to change the world? Start at your own fucking house. If you don't have one, there's an idea. I studied in college in Oregon, where there's a probably larger white population than where I'm from. Not technically, it's kind of white, but anyway. It's like I studied Latin America, like just I wanted to learn about different people, you know, because everybody's so guarded and sheltered, and I thought, like, you know, I don't want to experience these problems like again and again and again. Why? And so when I was studying about Latin American history, because there's so many people that have never learned about other countries, you know, it's like they barely even learn American history or American commerce or economy. And so when I was learning about Latin America, it's like a big area. It's not just Mexico, it's not just Central America, it's most of South America also. And you know, we have these problems of immigration in California, in America, and it's like, it's not a problem of like, you know, we don't want you here. It's like we want you, but we don't want you to be here if you're being a third world person, you know? Like, it's like, I was staying at a hostel and there's a woman from like Mexico City or some metropolis or whatever in Mexico, and it had like she was you know, she's like me. We're just like staying at a hostel, having a chat, being normal, and but then it's like over by my house, it's kind of like in farmland, and it's like there's these fucking Mexicans living in a shack. And I'm like, that's illegal. Not only is it a violation of civil code, it is a violation of building code, and it is a violation of international peace treaty. It's like, you have to be able to deport people if they're not living right. If they want to fucking be Mexican in Mexico, that's their problem. If they want to be fucking Mexican in California, I have a problem, right? It's a fucking problem. And these people want to protest in the streets and be like, the immigration control, whatever it's called, like the ICE, it's like, it's not right. All these fucking hippies that are high on pot and drugs, and they're just like, I just want to get my drugs, man. Like, can you get that for me? And I'm like, have you ever gone to the pharmacy? Have you ever talked to your own government about how they know how to treat you? It's not an individual issue, right? That people are on drugs and they make wrong decisions, that they, are corrupt and make mistakes, or that they, when you're writing and you make a misspelling, that's why there's editing software, that's why there's editors, that's why there are human beings. If you're only importing human beings, how do you get life? How do you sustain your own life when you want something that is you, not somebody else? It's like when I went to college, it's like I lived in a family where I would tell them the rules and they wouldn't listen to me. And I got sick and tired of people not listening to me. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go to college because this dead-end job is not working for me. These people, they don't like me. Like, they'd be like, oh, the nice girl. Or like, oh, the pretty girl. And it's like, well, that's nice. But it's not like, oh, Mariah. So, like, it's like, do I need to learn the name Yesenia or Eureka or Nayeli? No, I don't need to. But that's like the people that I went to school with. It's like, my name's Mark. My name's Sarah. My name's Bobby. My name's Eric. It's like, why are you guys being so mean to me? You're going to tell me that you have a program that you can get rid of people that are coming into my country illegally, but then you're going to like sit there and be like, oh, Mariah's so illegal. Look at the spelling of her name. And it's like, it's not illegal to be an intellectual. Maybe you should pay people more so they understand more. We had a revolution. California's minimum wage went up by like $3 or $5. And meanwhile, still don't have a job. And people are getting paid to be on the street. I mean, why? And it's difficult, like when, because I grew up watching a lot of TV, and on TV it's like, ooh, a sexy foreigner, or oh wow, like they talk so different, or like I want to learn a foreign language, and then it's like, it's like this weird scenario where it's like the drama in my family growing up. It's like it is a different language to many people, and I was like, so I didn't talk it, right? I was like, I don't want to talk about my problems. I don't feel like getting negative attention. I want to get positive attention. And that didn't really pan out because of these conditions that the American public suffers. It's like it's It's like, you're from California. Like when I was in school, it's like, I think in probably like it was like second, third grade, everybody went to Disneyland. I never got to go to Disneyland. I've still never been to Disneyland. It's something that, I remembered, oh, when I have kids, I can go to Disneyland, right? And so it's like, it's that train of thought or that train of consciousness that everybody sits on, like their little cloud or their apartment or their family's house or they buy their own home and they just sit around and watch TV, or they participate in employment that is just people that they know already and they all just think the same, And then I feel like, it's like some families when they have babies, it's like everybody's happy, And like I feel like in my family, like when we were born and we were born out of wedlock, and it was kind of like the family didn't want to really help my parents at that point, like they were like, oh, you people. And it was like, they're normal people. But like to explain like the feelings and the emotions, it's like they've had to get all these other people just to get them to conceptualize like what, like it's like when they sold, like, like when my grandparents, they decided to move. And it's like when they moved, I didn't end up going to the city at all. I mean, comparatively, like I was like, maybe I'll move to the Bay Area. Like I can go to college and get a job. And then it was like, oh, my grandparents moved. I don't know anybody in the Bay Area. Not to say I don't know anybody. It's not like I couldn't meet people. But it was like that kind of experience where it's like the places that you really want to go are suddenly filled with these people that you don't know and you don't understand them. And like it causes me angst and like sadness. Like it's not teenage angst, it's like adult angst. Like it's like I want to get through that door. Like I want to become profitable. I don't want to be held down by people that historically didn't live in the region. Like, you're a Mexican, but you look Persian, and you're living in California, and you're working for a white guy with an Indian grandma, some shit, right? Like, it's like, why would I need to go to college to learn that? Like, I live here. Like, you go to college for chemistry, for biology. You don't go to, like, creative writing, sure. It's like, why do I have to reach so far into nothingness to tell people what they already know? It's so annoying. It's like all the things you love disappear because you decided to go to college instead of making money. And you go, man, that man would be so much money if he didn't go and make money and went to college. I have like gotten to the time to reflect upon, like, I would say Lady Gaga's like interviews and stuff. Like I was having this really rough time, and I was like, wow, at least somebody's getting paid, right? Like I hope that she has like a savings. She's a hard worker, right? It's like running around belting out songs. So it's kind of weird, like the way the universe works in mysterious ways. And you think it's all going to be the same and boring, and then it's all like crazy, different, wild. You're like, wow, this girl's so wild. Why would I want to be around her? And then it's like, oh, it's a boy. He's wild too. I know why I don't want to be around him. Yeah. It's just one of those weird experiences. Like, you think you're gonna live in one place, or you think you're gonna go travel a whole bunch, and then you're like living in one place. You're gonna live in one place, and then you're like traveling all over the place. It's weird though, because the people that you think that people that live in one place are like podunk and nothing, and really it's a lot of the time they're like descendants of like people that like ran away. Like when people are really ignorant, sometimes it's really just people that like lacked resources, like they like ran away and didn't have the things that they needed, and then like so they're like missing information. And so I was like, I've met so many people in my life, and I got such a headache. Like I was so, I cannot handle any more people right now. I'm gonna go get my apartment. I'm gonna just relax, and I'm gonna stay mellow about the whole situation. Like that, my life is not what I would imagine it would be at this time, and I have to like realize that some people think that they can change things overnight, and some people know that change is a long time coming. Like when you think about ideas and different stimuli, it's like sometimes you think, oh, I'm so inspired, like, by this concrete thing that has always been. And then, when you appreciate it, it's like it becomes more, right? It's like when you appreciate it, you can expand more upon it than when you're degrading it or speaking low of it. It's like that's what is deconstructive. And so there's something to be said about people speaking highly of one another and of things that they want and things that they cherish. I think that song is a beautiful way to express feelings and thoughts. And I think also personal experiences are also of value in that regard. But like I was saying, living in a rural area, it's hard to get the exposure of like the outside world, like not just commercialism, but like actual value of things of our own country, like the people think, oh, the FDA doesn't know what the heck they're talking about. And you say, well, actually, if you think about the origin of technically, usually people start at money, right? When you're a kid, you get told about money. But it's like you want to go to college, you want to read a book. You don't want to sit there and say, oh, the only thing that I want is my, where is it? My little technology phone. I can just read all my things online on Kindle or Audible. You go, well, so what you're telling me is you're trying to remove my library. Why would you tell me that? The books on the shelves at the libraries at the universities are really very interesting. And there is so much diversity that you could sit and read while at college. Like, if you don't value the books that people produce, you're not valuing yourself as an American. And the buildings that back all of that are fascinating. They're like made of stone and granite and have pillars or stucco, and all of that is so valuable. And for people to sit around on drugs and tell you things that aren't true is so detrimental. And that's what is fascinating also about immigration. Like the books in other languages too. That's why I find it very frustrating that the ignorance that the children are faced with sometimes. I dropped in on I think it was like a 500 level, 400 or 500 level psychology class. And because they were all practicing anarchy, I said I should get my fill. And I thought, oh, I'll stop by so-and-so's class because it's taught in this building that everybody was focusing on for a little bit. And it was like this, they're talking about the things that people do, you know? And I was thinking how like I even raised my hand and answered a question. But one of the students, it was like, the student is like, you know, they're talking about the book that they're reading in class, and it's like one of these psychology classes. So it's you know, about kind of psyche and how people relate to the things that they read. And this black student, he raises his hand and says, you know, why don't these white men that are writing all these books, why don't they they need to write books about us too? And I was kind of like, I think I rose my hand and said like, ooh, let me answer that one. And so I was kind of like, well, you're missing the point. Like you're missing the point of what college is, right? The intellectual stimuli of what is to be an intellectual, right? It's not to expect that somebody else will write your book for you. You know, like it's like you're like I met a different fellow who he had some crazy wild story of his own life, and he was kind of like thinking that I was like one of these like, you know, international traveler, like I'm gonna write a book about you type person. And I was like, well, I mean, that's reasonable resolve that, like, if people wanted to know about them, yeah, that's a resource. But the point of the matter is like the childish notion of I need someone else to explain the world to me entirely, right? And it's a living experience. Like the story of life, it's a living experience. You're not in a controlled environment all the time. You're not expected to show up all the time. It's like some people are expected to show up all the time. Are they expected to show up for somebody who's like, hey, why aren't you writing a book about me? Because I look different. You're like, write your own book. Go to college yourself. You're at college. You're in a superior level grade of class. And you're not getting the picture that the definition of success at the college level is being able to profoundly define what it is to be human. Like, people think that the only jobs in chemistry are like making pharmaceuticals or creating, lab created diamonds. And you're kind of like, paint's chemistry. Automobile paint is chemistry. Geology, you'd have to go mining. Or you could work in the office, right? It's like these weird things about how this government has not valued any of the intellectual stimuli. Like, it's like, I want to study chemistry, and they're like, you didn't even read the manual. And I was like, well, yeah, I was like late for class. So it's just like these points of contention where the people are just being lazy, right? And not just like people in general, like the male species. They're overachieving in the wrong fields. That's what one of my yoga teachers was talking about. They're like, it's a sign of the times. And I was like, the newspaper is always printing these terrible stories. And my economist teacher, one of my economy teachers, was like, oh yeah, you don't even need to go to college. You could just read a newspaper. I was like, oh, was he working for the Fed? He's all, yeah, you could just read a newspaper. I was like, going to college. And I was like, well, I would defend reading a newspaper, but I wouldn't say it's the same as going to college, right? Like, that's the value of listening, is that you learn more when you listen. And sometimes I'm sad that of the things that I've missed, and I want so badly to meet somebody who wants, like, to be at home with me and to be out in the world with me, and not in these groups of people that are just plain ignorant and that don't understand, like, the meaning behind, like, the production of things, right? It's like, in California, we have, like, just a headache amount of diversity in human experience. Like, there's white people, there's Native American people, there's black people, there's Asian people from white communities, there's, Europeans, and all these different types of people. And it's like, when I'm having to explain to people that historically, like, the different groups of people, like, in urban areas, like, for example, in Los Angeles, it's like, the Mexican community would be in one region, and the white people would be in an area, and the black people would have their neighborhood. And it's kind of like, you didn't have these, like, muddling of the people with their, their love stories and their songs that everybody wants to listen to. So it's kind of like that weird, like, counterculture influence in which it's like, everybody has to engage with other people. You can't just run around in life being like, I'm gonna shoot your ass. Like, if you come anywhere near my house, like, and it's sad that people have to behave that way sometimes because of the crime in certain regions. And so it's disparaging in a way, because when I reflect upon my previous generations and their successes, um, I don't find the school including more minority students as a benefit if the desired outcome is actually like a literate populace. Like I met another black guy at the like orientation at college, and he's like in remedial math and English, and you're like, what benefit is that? Like, I mean, I'm already slow at reading to begin with. That's one of the professors. Oh yeah, I was taking this African Studies professor class, and he I guess his father had told him, it's like we were talking about how Africa is impoverished, and we were watching some film from long ago or whatever, and it was like he's telling us, when your poverty becomes your wealth, like it's like what you're impoverished of becomes what is your wealth. And I was like, that's kind of like Proverbs, like the way that the people don't really like understand what people are going through sometimes. Well, and that's like so human. And so I was like thinking about that, because like my apartment, for example, it's like all those nasty things that my mom said, it's like they get turned into like gashes on the floor. I don't own the floor. It's not mine. Like, I don't have to own the things that she's said to me. And when I have children and she says things to them, I can tell her my real opinion. Like if she says to my child, oh, you're eating an awful lot. Well, yeah, Mom, it's really important to get your nutrients, your vitamins and minerals. It's kind of weird sometimes, like what certain people do. Like my grandmother, I love my mom's mom. She's just a doll. She's such a gracious hostess, and when we go to her house, it's like there's always appetizers and dinner, and you never have like I feel like I'm missing a meal type of experience. And at my mother's house, it's like Mom's cooking dinner by herself. She doesn't have a man right now, and you're like looking through the fridge or taking some snacks out of the cupboard, and she's like, stop it, you'll ruin your dinner. And I'm like, Mom, you're not living right. You're telling me that you don't want me to eat. Like that's the biological communication that is innate in family life, right? It's like when your family is home, when your family's home, because you know how they would treat you. It's like my mom is a family member that I have had probably the most contact with. And she's a little like not what you're really looking for when you are trying to get the right answers, right? It's like, well, no wonder she doesn't have a husband. She's starving herself and starving the children. It's like, why is she being like that? It's not normal. I mean, it's okay, similar, one of my school project partners, she was describing how her mother was slightly like she told me this story where her like she was an athlete, okay, and she had like a set like plate, had a set amount of food on her plate, and her mom came over, and she like nibbled a little food off her plate, and it like ticked her off a little bit, you know. And I was like, that's like that same kind of contention, like in the family of like, is there enough? And it's like, you know, there's supposed to always be enough. There's always enough. It's people's behavior that causes these conditions that people suffer, right? It's like France was suffering terrorism, and you know, like the bombing of the Twin Towers in America, in New York, and it's like the at-home struggle of the woman won't even let me eat. And it's like, but that's not all women, right? It's like, that's not every woman. It's like, remember that when you're having that, like, you know, psychological dispute with yourself about the perception of what is and what is not, right? When you want to be an authority, when you want to be somebody who knows what is right and wrong, it is totally okay to have appetizers and to have dinner and to support your children in their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions. It is not okay when your children are hungry and you tell them that they cannot eat, and then you're not eating, and then, you know, these imbalances of power that cause the people to struggle and have these ideas that are so outlandish. It's like, if you want to plan something stable and real and not have these problems of terrorism, it's like you have to actually spend the time getting to know what are the real issues. Like, it's like you're filling a Mexican food order, and instead of bringing real food, you're bringing peppers. Do I want to eat pepper? No, I want to eat like spaghetti and salad and bread. Do I want to eat a nasty hamburger? No, I want to eat a yummy hamburger. Do I want to eat Spam? No, I'd rather eat sushi. Do I want to eat Republican food? Probably. And, you know, and my grandmother's a Democrat. So it's like just very contentious. These notions of you know, I was reading a like Bible study thing, and it's like, God hates divorce. I'm like, God hates me. Woe is me. And so they're like, no, God doesn't hate divorce. And it's like, but in the higher, like in your higher realm, when you think about like how to plan, right? It's like, you don't want to plan on getting a divorce. You want to plan on succeeding, right? But that's like the weird constructs that are bred into us as humans. You know, where we all learn differently, and we all internalize different sessions or different sections of the human experience. You know, and talking to different people sometimes is enlightening, because you can rationalize like your other constructs of like, oh, I was having this horrible day and I thought I was hallucinating and I didn't know what was going on. And then, these other people are like, uh, oh yeah, that's like King Solomon and his jars of gin and the people out in the desert and they saw all these crazy things, and and you wonder, um, but there's other people that have had these experiences just because maybe you had a unique experience or maybe you feel like there's nobody relating to you or you don't want to talk to the people who think that that's a cool thing to do. It's like there's this whole outer realm of people that exist, and it's important sometimes to take a step back from like your everyday routine, as far as like, oh, every morning I get up and I turn on the news and I make breakfast and then I sit down and eat, and when I'm watching the breakfast or when I'm watching the TV, it's like telling me this and telling me that. And the news sometimes is very beneficial, and sometimes it's just it's like it's conundruming. Like, it's like all I hear about on the news is murder. Why? Or conversely, it's like there just really isn't any news right now, and so it's kind of, that's when people get drawn into drama, I think. And I'm aware that I'm well versed in what is drama, but it's not necessarily something that I really want to delve into because of my resource situation not being what I wish would be right now. It's not really fun to not have a car. It's not really fun to be in a setting that is, slightly rural. I mean, it's urban, it's a city, but it's rural. And these other people that I've met in my life, it's like, oh, we're going over here, we're doing this, we're doing that, like blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh my God, that's going to be so fun. Like, let's totally do it. That's awesome. And I'm like, but I want to too, right? Like, I want to go to the music festival and not get dosed with drugs. I want to go to the islands and not get bit by a snake or scorpion or whatever it is. Like, it's like, I want to have safety and I want to participate also. And, when these people are out in the street complaining, it worries me that the constructs of society and the notion of reality are not being conveyed appropriately, due to like the machismo and the anti whatever, that people like are experiencing. It's like you go to Italy and you go to the Vatican and all the mass of people, it's like they're not complaining, they're not like sitting out in the street and being like, oh, I hate these vendors, they're so stupid, or whatever it is, like it's like and the same goes for the like what is it, at the Muslim like center of religion, they're all peaceful and nobody's like, you always got to watch out for those bad people that are trying to scam the other people, but there's this light to the notion of being in a big group of people. Like it's fun, and it's challenging to have good experiences when there are bad people, because they're conniving and they try to trick you, and so a lot of people are like, well, I could just avoid that. I could just not go to that place. I could, I don't have to. And it's like, but sometimes then you just sit there and you wonder, like, would I be a happier person? Would I be a more wealthy person? Would I find myself more? Would I be prettier? um, so it's difficult being alone. I mean, the um, I think that men in general have a higher expectation in society, but I think that in reality, the women are probably the more stable entity as far as like what is the moral regard in the in regards to like the sanctity of marriage and what is important, and how do people get raised. It's like having a bad mother, or being like, well, she was a good mother when I was a child. I never was like trying to be rude or talking over her or whatever. And it's like but then really conceptualizing like what is to mother, like what is the content of what this is. It's like when the whatever public administration deemed that they were like not into the like teen pregnancy. It's like those women sometimes get really abused, and when you consider that motherhood is actually very, it affects your body, it affects how you think about other people, it affects the things that you want in life. And so it's like when I went to Peru, and the women, I have a plaza in the town that I grew up in. And in Peru, the women, it's like their men had been accosted. And like many of them were like missing or dead or whatever. And they were like having the candle vigil. And, when I was there, I was like just enjoying like the visit. And when I got back, and I didn't really find anybody yet of like who I want to be with, and it scared me, right? Like it like when I had a boyfriend in high school, like I was like, I'm in love, like what if he dies? What would I do? Like all these things, right? Like I'm so scared of that real like intense love. And so these women, they were like having their vigil, and they're wearing their little chola outfits, and very cultural. And I was like, oh my God, like that's the saddest thing I ever heard. And I couldn't like it's like something that, where like my mom, it's like she's had multiple relationships and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, yeah, but it's like she has 4 kids, and both the men that gave her the kids is like totally alive and living. But she did have a boyfriend who died, and that's really sad. It's like a sad, sad story of like when people go to war, or when people have drug problems, or when people are violent, when there's crime and gang violence and all these other things. And and education is a key for sure, but it's not a guarantee, right? It doesn't guarantee that nothing ever happened. It's like, it's just that whole like realm of things of like, what is going on in the world? How do we defend ourselves against these, bad things or bad people or evil or whatever it is, like, so it's that type of experience where there's just so much in the world, and like participating in it is fun, but there's so many different realities, right? Like it's like the reality of like there is a woman and she's dancing on a stage in her underwear and she's like a star, and you're like, that seems very weird. Like, wouldn't you think that there would be like cloth to cover her body? um and and then these women that are fully clothed and they've lost their men, and I've like really not wanted to talk to the people that are like super into Lady Gaga. Not to say that she isn't a fabulous artist and very talented. It's just her spectacle, right? Like, she's making a spectacle of her own experience. And it's like, it's not really congruent to like what is of real value and substance. I mean, it's very like globalism centric, but it's not like, it's not held accountable, right? She's a symptom of the system in which people have not been held accountable for their brash behavior. And it's frustrating because you want like censorship to be this thing, like you're like, I want it to look like this, and I want it to be pretty, and I want to hear its voice. And then you worry, you go, is she okay wearing those clothes? Is she just being abused? Is she just like running through rocket propulsion like it doesn't exist? Like, that's just one of those, who thinks that is what they want, right? It's like, she's like, I want to be a star. You're like, at the cost of your immortal soul? Are you going to have a husband? Or is she some type of immortal? I say that because I'm sad, because I've not studied French because of my mother. And I thought of studying French when I started high school long ago. I thought, oh, I'll take French class, that'll be fun. And my mom was like, we live in California, Mariah. Everybody's gonna be speaking Spanish. And I was like, you know what? No, it's not okay. Because it's like, that's like, if I was an adult and she said that to me, I would think, well, actually, it's not about California that I want to learn that language. It's that I want more substance to my own culture, right? I'm not Mexican. I'm not Spanish. I'm not really French. But the culture of it, like my grandmother was a teacher, it's like the immortals and the like constant flame of knowledge. And what happens when when you think, oh, the knowledge went kaput, it doesn't matter. You're like, well, that's not wisdom, is it? So France is very beautiful. I think I felt utter despair that I had not learned any French and that my name is so not French at all. So like unpronounceable in French. So I'm taking a step back from the travesty that is my aunt and how she believes that anybody can travel anywhere, and I'm like, she's a blonde. Because when I traveled to Peru by myself, it just wasn't the happiness that I wanted, right? It was like I wanted so badly someone to be there with me, and there just wasn't anyone there. Because it was such a beautiful experience. Somebody I could talk to. Hey, take this picture of me like this, you know? And no, there wasn't anyone there. So I would hate to think the same of like Europe. If I wanted to travel to Europe, I'm not going to go and travel by myself anymore, especially after like all these crazy things that people are doing. It's just, I know that I'm safer with somebody who's reliable and, you know, not a drunk or not into like running away from me or whatever like crazy people do. Like somebody who wants to invest the time in getting to know me and being there with me. So yeah, that's my little 1 hour and 20-minute spiel of the depths of winter in California.